Hello, and welcome to the September 8th lesson for the day. I am sorry that I can't be with you guys today. I took half of a personal day so that way I can go down to Maryland for a concert. But just to let you know that I will want you to complete the density practice problems that you have on the back of the notes page, and then you will also have a lab on Monday and a test on Friday next week. Okay, so before you do now, I want you to review the physical and chemical changes practice problems with a partner. Okay, so review those practice problems, and then once you are done reviewing them with a partner, so pause the video and review them, I want you to place that in the bin for me so that I can grade them when I come back on Monday. So please pause the video now. Alrighty, well, welcome back. Thank you for reviewing your lovely practice problems with a partner. So let's begin. You should have gotten a piece of paper from the sub talking about density. So density is the amount of volume a substance takes up in accordance to its mass. So remember that density is a physical property and is determined by the mass of the substance divided by the volume. So for shapes with fixed volumes, you multiply it by the length, width, and height. For example, this is cubes, anything that is rectangular in shape. It could be a cylinder, for example. So you are going to make sure that you are multiplying the length, the width, and the height by each other. For irregular solids, you are going to be doing a water displacement method in order to determine the volume of a substance. So essentially, you would take the substance itself, place it in water in order to define the volume. So you would take an initial volume and then a final volume of that substance in order to figure out the density of that substance. The equation for density is followed by this lovely density triangle where you have density equals mass divided by volume. Now, the unique part of this lovely triangle, is that if you cover up one of the things, so for example, if you cover up mass, let's say you're solving for mass, the equation for that would be density times volume. Now, if you're covering up, let's say, density, the equation for that would be mass divided by volume. So whatever you're covering up will provide you the equation that you need for the problem that you're solving for. So whatever you need to solve for, just cover it over and you're given the equation there so that you're readily available to solve it. So I just want to go over volume real quick. Okay, so if it's a fixed solid, remember that you're going to multiply the length times width times height to figure out the volume. And you're going to have that in centimeters. If it's an irregular solid, for example, a screw, you're going to measure the initial volume of the substance first, place that substance in the graduated cylinder, get the final volume of the graduated cylinder, and then subtract those in order to have the volume of the substance that you are looking for. So now that we have that, you are going to begin working through some practice problems. So for example, number 1 says 14 milliliters of ethanol has a mass of 10.92 grams. What is the density? So you're going to be using the density equation, so you need to take the mass divided by the volumes. So that would be 10.92 grams divided by 14 milliliters. And the answer that you would get is 0.78 grams per milliliter. Now remember, to make sure that you're putting the units for this so that way you're more capable of and being able to ensure that you are gathering the right and correct units for this. So density will have grams per milliliter, the mass will have grams, and the volume will either have milliliters or centimeters cubed. Okay, so let's move on to example number 2. It says N-butanol alcohol has a density of 0.81 grams per milliliter. If it has a mass of 5.75 grams, what volume would it occupy? So for this, you would need to cover up the volume on the triangle, and then you would get provided the equation of mass divided by density. So you would do 5.75 grams divided by 0.81 grams per milliliter, and you would be provided with the answer of 7.10 milliliter. Okay. Now let's move to example number 3, where you're talking about an irregular solid. Okay, so an irregular solid has a mass of 6.9 grams. If we have a graduated cylinder that has an initial volume of 50 milliliters, and it is displaced to a volume of 54.8 milliliters, what is the density? So I'm going to let you figure out first, what do I need to do with the two volumes? Okay, and if you said that you needed to do the water displacement method, you need to make sure that you're subtracting the final volume minus the initial volume first. So when you do that, you would get 4.8 milliliters, and then you're able to determine the density by the mass divided by volume, and you will get 1.44 grams per milliliter in order to determine your substance. Now, for question number 4, I would like you to do it by your own. I'm going to have you pause this video and then come back once you figure that you probably have the answer. Remember, you are going to be talking about a cube in practice problem number 4, so make sure that you're using the right equation to solve for the volume. So I'm going to pause the video and then come back when you have the answer. Alright, so for practice problem number 4, you were given a copper cube that has a length of a side of 1.5 centimeters. If the copper cube has a density of 8.96 grams per centimeters cubed, what is the mass of the copper cube? So what I would like you to do is you're going to be multiplying the length times width times height. So each of those would be 1.5. So you're going to cube that and you get the answer of 3.375 cubed. Then you're going to be using the mass equation. So if you cover up mass, it's density times volume. So you're going to take 8.96 grams per centimeters cubed and multiply that by the volume that you were given to get 30.24 grams. Okay. Now, for your exit ticket, I want you to complete question number 5 on your own. So how would you find that you have a ring that is actually made of gold? My hint to you is that remember that a ring is an irregular solid, so you got to take the volume of that irregularly, and then you also have to determine the mass. So I want you to come up with a step-by-step procedure in order to determine the lovely density of the gold ring and then determine if it's pure or not. Once you have done that, please turn your paper over and complete the practice problems in the back. Once you are done, please turn your paper into the bin and prepare for the lab that you are going to have on Monday. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'm sorry that I could not be there with you today.